Hello and welcome to the Fire in the Belly show. Today we have myself, Mighty Pete, and we have the Dr. Jim Van Allen. Good afternoon to you. Good morning, I should say, actually.
Good morning. Yes, it's morning here in Florida, but I'm glad to be with you.
No, listen, thanks for coming on the show. So, Jim, tell us, who are you, what do you do, and where are you from? Well, we know you're from Florida, so that's a good start.
We're in the United States, in Florida, sunny Florida. It's 80 degrees here today, so we're we're having a great time in living down here, and things are going well. And I teach primarily online, so I am a full-time online instructor. I teach, believe it or not, of all things, public speaking online. We make it work, and I teach interpersonal communication, business communication, all things communication. So that's sort of been my life for the last 15 years or so since college. I've had this big love with communication, and it's so broad and so general and just so applicable to people's lives. And I remember when I was learning about it, I just fell in love with what it can teach you about how to interact with people, how to interact with yourself too. And I'm like, what can I do with this information, right? What can I do with this? And I'm like, I would love to teach this, but I would also love to train on this and help others with it. So, in addition to being a professor, I'm a speaker and a trainer. So, I go around to schools and companies, and I work for an author. His name is John Gordon, Jon Gordon. He's written 22 books, half of them have been bestsellers, and I'm on his speaking team. So I'll do events all over the country. Now it's been virtually for about a year or so, but we're starting to book some in-person ones. So speaker, professor, and I have a podcast on, what did you guess? Communication. So it's called Communicate to Motivate, where we just bring communication into everybody's everyday lives. We talk about it from a practical standpoint, relationships, family, work, personality, all sorts of things. And then I always give a takeaway at the end. So born and raised in Florida, and I have a son who's 6 and another son who's 4. And I'm married, happily married now for 11 years. Very active in our neighborhood. I've been roped on to a number of boards in our community, in our neighborhood. Resistant for that for a while, but I like to serve, and I like to add where I can. So we're involved in our church, we're involved in our neighborhood, we're involved in our community. We're not the type of family that just kind of sits idly by. We like to be active and with people and doing things. And like I was saying at the beginning, there's always something to do, but it's nothing that's overwhelming, I would say, because my wife and I are very good about making cuts or stopping things when we need to, or not getting over involved. So that's a little bit about me. We love life as much as possible here, and we love each other.
Wow, that's beautiful. And it's the ultimate life, right? You get control, you get to experience all these things. But tell me, first of all, why communication?
So that was something that I sort of fell into, when I was younger. I was the kid who, and I'm talking about young, fourth, fifth, fourth grade, third grade, right? When you're how old? 11, 12, where started doing these public speaking competitions in school, right? The school, hey, we're going to have I think in the US it's called 4-H public speaking. And, you win your classes contest and you get to go to the school contest. And in fourth and fifth grade, I wasn't thinking too much about it. I would write the speech and then just deliver it naturally, and I was winning, right? And I was saying, this is fun. It's always fun to win, but it's more fun when you're having fun yourself. And then middle school comes around, and I was in my eighth grade gifted class, and my teacher had us present for an hour. She had us do a country report on an hour, and for 13-year-old, that's a long time. That's a lot of space to fill, even now as an adult. But I remember just having fun with it. I did Australia, so I borrowed an Australian flag. I dressed like an Australian. I had fun with the class. So while everybody else was just getting up there and just sort of talk, hey, here's my country, here's what it's about, just very rote and routine, I was trying to do the accent and had props, and was just once again having fun, and carried that into high school with public speaking competitions, winning them, being state and class officer, doing well. And finally, was like, this is something that could be fun to do as a profession. I would go to these conferences and I would see these men and women on stage as the keynote speaker, right? You go to a conference, there's always a keynote speaker. I just remember sitting there being like, that's cool, right? I love public speaking. I've been doing well in it. How can I do that, right? And maybe how can I make money doing that? How can that be a life and a job? And that's something I had to just figure out as I went through college, and was like, okay, this at my university, University of Florida, there was not a major for being a speaker, a public speaker. There wasn't even a communication degree. So I had to do a degree in public relations, which was communication, right? But just in a more corporate level. And that led me to that major led me to meeting the author I work for now, John Gordon. So we met 15 years ago. And we can get into that in a little bit, how we met, because that was a big moment in my life. But, to make a long story short, at this junction in the conversation, I met him and he mentored me and shepherded me, and I interned for him. And now 15 years later, I'm a vice president in his company, right? Doing speaking and training, and my dream that I wanted to do since I was a kid. Uh, that's a very sustainable living now. And more importantly, though, I'm having a blast, because who doesn't have a blast when you are living your dream, right? When you pursued it and agonized over it and stressed over it for so long and yearned for it. And now I'm living it. And anytime I get a lead or a book an engagement, or get to go somewhere or travel somewhere or do something like this on Zoom, I'm still that little kid who's like, yes, like I get to do this. This is so much fun. And I've done, at this point now, hundreds, right? It's a lot. Over 10 years, you do a lot, but every one, I still have that fire in my belly, you have to use your podcast name, to do this, because it's something that I feel like I'm destined to do. Get deep here, born to do. So when you have that type of connection to something, it becomes part of you. It becomes part of your identity, which can be dangerous at times, but it definitely becomes something that I hang my hat on and others recognize me for. And most importantly, though, above me, above anything else, when you're a good speaker, you have an ability to affect and impact a lot of people's lives. And I think about all the audiences and teachers and people I've talked to over the last decade plus, and what an opportunity, right? To help them with personal development, to help them deal with anxiety, to help them be better communicators, better leaders. And I just think of the domino effect from every person that, and I and people on my team have interacted with. Just an amazing opportunity. And I'm humbled by every audience I get to speak with, because, and I say with and not to, because I always go back to when I was 13 years old doing that Australian report. I always try to interact and speak with people and have a conversation with them, instead of lecturing and saying, well, this is how I did it, this is how you need to do it. It's more of like, well, let's facilitate this and figure this out together. So I would say those are some big reasons why communication.
Well, it is so powerful, isn't it? I mean, it's the transfer of emotion, right? It's sort of bringing them on a journey with you. There's loads there. Yeah.
It is. It's and that's the number one thing I teach. Not only in my public speaking classes, I say this is a roller coaster ride. And if you're going to do a persuasive speech on something, right, you need to be using words and gestures and stories that are going to elicit the emotion that you want, that get out of the audience. And if I have to do a longer talk, if I have to do 60 minutes or 90 minutes, that's a wide range of emotions, because you have to start out really excited, right? Get them excited and want them to like you right away, because human nature is that we're making first impressions 5 to 8 seconds. If they don't like me right away, it's going to be a long hour. So getting them excited at the beginning, and then kind of taking them on that ride, right? Getting them interested, but then maybe getting them curious, and then maybe heard and validated, and maybe helping them to feel not sad with some of my stories, but concerned, or that they can relate to it a little bit. And then you kind of bring them out at the end. So it's kind of this gradual, you bring them out at the end excited, end big, start big too. So it's definitely an emotional roller coaster. And no matter if I do a Zoom call, Zoom talk, or an in-person talk, an hour, 3 hours, I've done 8 hours before with big groups. I'm sweating, right? Because I'm going through the emotions just as much as they are. So it's an emotional journey for all of us.
So tell me, Jim, what does fire in the belly mean to you?
I think fire in the belly to me means that you have an intense passion for something, and you don't let anything deter you from from pursuing that and from living it. And when there's passion, there's purpose, right? When you're passionate about something, usually you feel like it's part of your purpose. That's why you're so passionate about it. And when adversity strikes, or when challenges inevitably, rear their heads, you're ready to go after it, and you're ready to turn that adversity into something great, because the passion's there and the purpose is there. So that's it to me. Is that's fire in your belly. It's somebody who is not only knows their passion and purpose, but live it, right? Live it every single day. It's what they do, it's who they are, it's what they become, it's what they help others to find as well, because you see how important it is in your life. You see what it's done for you. And anytime we're humans, right? Anytime we have something cool that we've done, or we've gone to a new restaurant, we've read a book, we watch a Netflix show, what do we automatically do? We got to tell somebody, you got to read this book, you got to watch this show, you got to go to this restaurant, you got to go on this trip, right? Because we've had that experience, we've had that, and we want others to experience it as well. It's the same thing with passion and fire in our belly. If we're like, well, we're so passionate about this, I want you to find yours as well. What do you like to do? That's what I'm interested in, right? When I talk to people, is I love to get the conversations deeper. I love figuring out, what do you like to do? I don't like the superficial stuff. We can use that to kind of get there, but what really gets you going? Because we can't just be going through life, you know, in this uh, rote structure where we're not doing much. We're just status quo. We're not growing. We're not living. We're just existing. I don't feel like that's a way to go through life. I want to get one opportunity to live this life, I believe, and a limited time in which to do so. So why not have some fire in your belly? And that takes having a variety of experiences to find out what is it that is putting that fire in your belly, right? So we have to have a variety of experiences, and I'm glad I had a variety of experiences as a kid, and trying to do the same with my family as well. Just, hey, let's try some new sports and things and activities, and we'll see what really gets you going. So that's what I would say about that.
Is it something you've always had? I mean, is it something that sort of through time that you've built up? I mean,
From a public speaking standpoint, or
well, I
just
mean,
in
just
general?
life, I suppose, and where you're at today. You talked about living your dream, and has it always been that way, or where do you see
I think I've always been a very passionate person. If you I'm doing my on my podcast right now, we're studying the Enneagrams. We're studying personality traits, right? And I'm not an Enneagram expert or certified or any means. I've done enough where I understand it, but I'm trying to help people discover links between your personality and the communication strategies needed to manage that personality or talk with you. And what I found with doing this with myself is that I'm a loyalist. Loyalist is one of the personality types. And loyalists are ultra passionate people. And it's said to the point where you can become revolutionary with your ideas. And I was talking to my wife about that, and she's like, yes, that is you. When you get on something, you want to fight for that cause, and you want to defend this and defend my honor and I'm like, yeah, that's me, right? If you know me about my alma mater, where I went to school, or my city, or my sports teams, like I am like Joe sports team. My Tampa Bay Bucks just won the Super Bowl, right? And I just want to broadcast this to the world. I want to wear their stuff. I drove over to the parade and back in a day, and that's a long 3 hours from me. I mean, so I've always been passionate about the things that I love, and the people that I love too, and I will defend them to the end of the earth, right? So I think I've always had that inside of me. And of course, there's the underbelly to that as well. But for the most part, I'd say for the most part, though, my passion has helped me more than it's hurt me. I think it's helped me be a really good speaker, because I can tell stories, but I can also be very energetic with crowds, with people, and that helps to keep them locked in and listening and trust you and like you a little bit. So I would say that's definitely one aspect of my personality. I just have to learn to sort of reel it in sometimes, because what you have to realize is that what you may be passionate about, others may not be as much or as into it as you are, and that's okay. So it's sort of, tempering your expectations a bit when you are interacting with others. But I've learned that, hey, if I'm passionate about it, then that's great. That ultimately, that's what matters, right? Is that I'm passionate about my hobbies and my likes and my interests and my job, my career. And you hope that your loved ones, at least ask you questions and are curious, but they don't have to share my same level of passion for things. I've accepted that. I think that really has helped, lower my expectations for how somebody else in my life might feel about the things that I like. But it's definitely been there for a long while.
That's awesome. I mean, it's to be in that place where, I mean, are you? Is there a gap between who you are and who you truly are? Do you think? I mean, or are you just you? I mean, where are you at in your life?
Say that again. So between who I am and who
Well,
I,
curious
I
because I mean, a lot of times when we communicate, and communication is a fantastic topic. It's that are we saying what we're really trying to say, or is there an underlying message sometimes? And when people are talking about there's me, and then there's my true self. It's who I am to the public, to everyone outside, and then actually I step off stage, or I come home, or I do whatever, and then that's the real me where I do something different. Or for you, is that one and the same?
Now, that's a great question. And that's something that I've really, I don't want to say struggled with this year, but I've made a lot of realizations this year. 2020, I think helped a lot of us to strip down to the basics, right? And re-examine life and priorities and, how we react to situations. And we had a lot more time to think and be among loved ones and kind of get a little introspective, because there were a lot of changes happening in the world. And some of us maybe didn't respond as well as we wanted to and had a lot of anxiety and then had to deal with that. So I definitely experienced that this year, and really, found that, my self identity is not as solid as I maybe thought. And part of that reason is because, as a communicator and as my personality type is, I tend to be a bit of a chameleon. So if I'm interacting with somebody, I tend to take on a lot of not all, but some of their personality traits, or at least their communication traits, as a way, I think, instinctively, of helping them to communicate better with me, because that's a mirroring technique that they teach in communication. You kind of mirror somebody else to help them feel comfortable. And I have this desire in my heart to serve a lot, right? Just to serve others. If somebody comes to my house, or just in general to serve, what can I do for you? Your needs first. So when you do that, you tend to take on the burden of others a lot. So, and I was talking to somebody, professional this year, just to kind of, because I'm in my head a lot. So I was okay with just needing to unpack things with a professional. And they were talking a lot about self-identity and how mine definitely is, it was, I was kind of asking that, who is your true self? And I had to pause, be like, I'm not really sure. And I've even had some moments where because I work at home, and my wife works 3 days a week and the kids are in school a lot of the times, and or it's just me at the house. Or if when I travel, it's just me. And I'm like, is this me? Right? Is this who I truly am? Or is it when I'm interacting with my kids? Is that who I truly am? When I'm with my friends, when I'm on stage? So I don't really. I think I'm a mix of all, and that's sort of maybe a cop out answer, but for the most part, I think that's what I've sort of discovered, is that, who I really am. I'm still figuring that out, because I think I'm most comfortable in a variety of settings. I really am, and I think I'm most comfortable when I can, probably when I'm solo, I would say, because I don't have to be like catering to anybody. But then again, I don't want to live in isolation, right? I want my family to be home, and I want to be able to travel and experience things with them. So I really am the chameleon, and that, so but what that's taught me is that when I am communicating with various members of my family or friends or clients, people I interact with, that I can't get too deep into their personality and mirror too much, because if I stray too far away from maybe my core or who I think I am, then that's when your self-identity becomes really a toss-up. So the person you see on stage or the person you hear on my podcast, what I would say, I think that is an enhanced version of myself. I think that's me up there. I know it's me on that my podcast when you hear me, when you see me, but it's definitely an enhanced version. And it's still me, but it's not a fake person, it's not a persona, it's not a character. I don't have a character up there. I don't have a character on my podcast or on stage or with groups, but it's definitely a version of myself that maybe almost in a way I wish I could be all the time. Like I have friends that are extroverted or really social, and there's some part of me where it's like, man, that would make life a lot easier, right? It would make the sales process of my job a lot easier. That would make the client relations a lot easier. But nonetheless, I'm definitely more introverted, and I know that about myself. So when I get to go on stage, when I get to do my podcast, that really helps me to come out more and be a version of myself, like I said, that I wish I could be more often. That's not to say that that's not, so like I said, that extroverted part is definitely part of me, and it just gets to be enhanced when I'm on a group. And you know that's just something I come to accept, and I think that's why I enjoy speaking so much too, is I get to sort of discover and interact with this different side of myself that I don't get to interact with a lot.
No, it's always great because obviously, even with communication, is sometimes hearing yourself, and you're kind of going, that's interesting. I didn't know I felt that way. So, right? It's another form of communication.
Right.
How you communicate with yourself.
Self-talk is huge, and I've done guest spots on some podcasts on self-talk and toxic self-talk, and any communication textbook you find on interpersonal communication starts out with self-awareness. Like I can show you my comm book now, and it's one of the first 3 chapters is self-awareness, self-communication, self-talk. No, what did Socrates say? Know thyself, right? Know thyself. The unexamined life is not worth living, right? Know thyself, and that's really been powerful to me, and what I've really helped people to discover in talks and on my podcast as well is, you got to know what's going on inside your own head. You got to focus on your own mental health. If you really want to be a better boss and manager and principal and teacher who have a lot of responsibility on them, you have to be comfortable with yourself. You have to know your emotional triggers. You have to know your communication triggers. You have to know what causes you anxiety, and then you have to. And here are some strategies then and now to help you, right? Do that. So that's a big part of what I feel like is important to me is working with people on that self-talk, self-analysis, because it's so important in my life. I'm always sort of trying to, I want to say critique myself, but I'm aware of how I sound, what I'm thinking about, and how I am articulating a message or giving out a message to somebody. If I'm talking to my wife or my child or people in my life, I always try to pick my words, and quick to hear, right? Quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger. And it's not easy. I'll tell you, it is because I have a tendency, the reason why I have to try to pick my words and is because I have a tendency to pop off, right? I can definitely be that type who has a short fuse and can pop off, and you just sort of go down that path of, oop, I shouldn't have said that, and you can't take it back. So I definitely try to watch my words, or at least be not strategic. That's not the best word. Sometimes, right? Sometimes you can be strategic, but just with me, if you're going to interact with me outside of work or on stage, just in my daily life, with me, less is more when it comes to communication. Less is more. I try to ask a lot of questions, and I try not to. I'm not going to be the life of the party. I'm not going to be the big talker. With me, it's going to be more about quality over quantity. I'm not going to say too much, but I'm going to enough where we're having a good conversation. But I'm going to bow out a lot more than I'll push the conversation, I guess I'll say. But I know that about myself. That's self-talk. So it's sort of a barrier I put in place so I can kind of speed bump myself a little bit.
Do you ever get to just let rip and go and like not worry about speed bumps or anything else? Just go with the flow, see what comes out?
I think with certain people, you have to really be on my short list, right? So, my best friend who I've known 20 years, besides maybe some political topics that we can't talk about, American politics, we're sort of on opposite sides there. Besides that, maybe anything else though, yeah, I feel like there's only certain people that I can really just go off and just sort of just talk in an almost unfiltered way. But then, it's rare, I would say, and not that I drink that much, but if I have a little alcohol in me, that's definitely my. They always say, what kind of a drunk are you? I really don't drink that much, like a few times a year. But if I do have a little more in me, then I'm a happy, jovial talker. Like I said, that side of me just kind of comes out, right? But in everyday life, yeah, it's rare. I would say it's definitely rare. And when those moments come, when you're in that conversation where it's just unfiltered and just you're going, it feels great. Like it feels better than anything in the world because you finally being able to unpack, right? And just drive. You ever just cruise on cruise control and you just listen and driving and just going and you don't stop for an hour, that's awesome to me. But I'll definitely say it's rare because I don't allow myself to do that a lot. And I think there's some good in that. But I think there may have been some moments where I've missed the boat because I've been like, no, I'm going to put up that border here. I'm going to put up that barrier here. But for the most part, it's been a choice or decision or a strategy that's probably worked out better for me than it has not.
It's always interesting, isn't it? You ask people and say, what do you really want to say? It's because we put up this thing, it's either a persona or we've been told, yeah, it's like this is what the audience wants or whatever. And you're kind of going, right, come on, just let rip. Let's see what's there.
I wish it's part of me wishes, right? Like I'll watch, like I'm part of a pretty big family. Like my wife's family she's one of five, and we're all in the same area together. A lot of different personalities, right? And and my family back home too in Tampa, a decent sized family, and there are times, of course, where I would love to be like, let me tell you about it, right? Let me let I don't or you want to just disagree with them, or you want to tell them how to live their life, or you just want to go off on something they did or said or believe in or a way of thinking. And my wife and I can do that with each other about others. Like, not that we're trying to talk about people behind their back, but her and I can do that. Uh, but at the same time, I know if I actually did that in real life, that it probably wouldn't in this type of society, right, with people, probably wouldn't end well. Like, I don't know if you know the show, the American sitcom, any of your listeners, Everybody Loves Raymond. It was a big 90s sitcom. Ray Romano, this New Yorker, and it was just about their family just always being in each other's faces, right? Here, I have a problem. I'm going to tell you about it. Just going to walk into your house. I'm going to sit in your couch and I'm going to butt in your life and interact in your life. And the mother-in-law Ray's mom was always just, talking with Deborah and Ray about how her opinion on things. And that's like my worst nightmare, right? To be in a family like that. But at the same time, though, there's some there's some power in being able to at least have a little bit of that, because I think there's sometimes in my own family where you're not saying anything at all, right? You're so afraid of conflict or confrontation that you don't go anywhere, right? And you put things under the rug, you let them build. And when you do that, that could be a dangerous explosion. So I think on both sides of my family, I think that happens. I think there's just a general dislike of confrontation or upsetting the balance of the status quo. And yeah, that'd be great. It'd be great to have some times where I'm like, where you just sort of as a pop off as a family and not take offense to it. But I don't exist in two families that would probably do well in, and you have to do a little bit more of a song and dance to get your opinion across, for sure.
I mean, what's for you? I mean, do people get you? Do you think everyone sort of is on the same page? And I mean, is that what good communication is? That people understand you, or you? Is it further than that? It's you're helping them to get themselves.
I think part of being a good communicator, I know part of being a good communicator is making sure your message is understood and that there's little room for interpret massive interpretation. If you leave gaps in a message, people will fill those gaps and they'll fill it with their own perceptions because that's how the brain tries to understand the message. If you don't give them all the information, they're going to create the information, or they're going to create their version of it. So I would say for the most part, I think people get me. I would say, I think that there's still some things that maybe people don't know or are surprised to hear. Like if they may, some of them may be surprised if they're listening to this, and surprised to hear, well, Jim talked to a counselor this year. That's wow, I didn't think so. Or when they hear that I have issues with my father, who I haven't really spoken to much in over a decade. Well, I would have never thought that. Or or I have or if I deal with social anxiety, I didn't know that. Or so I definitely mask a lot of my vulnerabilities with people who, not with everybody, but I think generally I want people to think that I have it together. I think that's important for me. I think it's important for a lot of people, right? Now, if you look at my social media, I'm not posting every single day on, I'm not giving you like a guide of my life, what I'm doing or feeling every day. For the most part, though, I want people just to understand that. I think I want them to know that I definitely want to give off the impression that I have it together and that I'm working on personal development and that I'm happy generally. And I think for the most part, though, I do have it together and I am happy. So I think it's not much of a stretch. It's not like I'm this walking disaster and I'm trying to, um, you know, yeah, put lipstick on a pig, right? So as make my life look great. But I think it's important for me that they understand that I really want to have their best interest at heart. I really want to have a good relationship with people. And I'll do that by keeping in touch with people. Relationships are important to me. I've always had a hard time letting go of relationships, even with former friends and people, just people in general. I think I hold on to relationships a lot longer than most. I think that's just from that need to always be serving their self-interest and serving them and wanting to appear like I'm part of their lives and just a phone call away. But I think for the most part, people understand me, but they're definitely surprised. Um, they're surprised hearing a few things that may come out as we go.
It's interesting. I mean, is there a gap between serving and pleasing? How do you go from being of service to somebody else or being a people pleaser to actually ultimately to try and help yourself? Does that make sense?
It does. So, and I would say that I am not a. I wouldn't say I'm a people pleaser because if I feel like everybody's just doing something to please other people, the rebel in me comes out, right? If I don't, especially if I don't believe in it, or if there's there's, I'm trying to think of an example. There's some things that will happen on social media where everybody will post the same profile pic, or everybody will, you'll just see, oh, you have to wear this or put, but I don't, if I feel like everybody's doing it, even if it's a good thing or something, sometimes I'll be like, no, I'm going to go the other way, just because I just have that little bit of a rebellious heart at times. So I wouldn't say I'm people pleasing because, that would imply almost this, to me, sometimes people do that just because I don't want to say they're sheep, but they're not thinking for themselves. And they're just doing something to make the masses feel better and without even thinking too much. And that's not really how I operate. So to say serving, though, I'm talking more about, my family, my loved ones, my friends, the church that I'm involved with, people. I'm not the one that lines up at the homeless shelter and I'm serving the homeless every night or starting this nonprofit that clothes people. That's, of course, that's important, but I wouldn't say I serve in that way. I serve more in the interpersonal way, I would say, in a relational way, meaning, I want to know what's going on in your life. I want to be a shoulder you can talk to. If you need help moving, if you need help with this, call me. I'm going to be right over there. I'll help you. No problem at all. If my church needs me to do announcements every Sunday, I'm there. I'm doing them every Sunday. If my client needs me to do 2 talks instead of 1 and still charge the same amount, okay, we'll do that. You're a school. I'll help you out here. Things like that. So I think that's the difference to me between people pleasing and serving. I think serving is deeper. It's from the heart more. It's real. If I'm quote serving you or talking with you or trying to have a better relationship with you or enrich your life or watch your kids, like, my wife and I, we have a lot of family in the area. We love babysitting, cousins or nephews and stuff like that. Come on over. They can drop them off 2 days. Doesn't you want to go away? Come on. We love doing that, and we love doing it without having any strings attached. So we don't do that just to people please the family, right? We do that because we want to serve, we want to help, and we don't expect anything in return. I've had it where we've watched my sister-in-law's child before, and 2 nights or something they went out of town, and she tried to give us a gift card for watching. Hey, go out, you guys can have dinner. We refused it, and God bless her, I love her, but we were like, listen, this is nice, but we are not going to accept it. Like, we're family. This is what family does. We serve each other. We help each other. We love each other. We support each other. And watching your child is not a burden. We love doing it because they're our blood as well. And we're their guardian. If something were to happen to you, I know that we are that child's guardian. So we don't expect anything in return. We don't want anything in return. And to me, that's serving. People pleasing, I feel like you want the acceptance of the masses in return. And I'm not seeking that, right? I'm not seeking that. I try to think for myself. I try to do my own research on whether I want to participate in something or not. Social customs are great and they hold us together, but sometimes people can take them way too far, where to the point where they demand compliance. And if I think it's unjust, it's not going to be something that I jump in with. But I definitely like to serve for sure.
That's always, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Again, but this is all forms of communication. How we interact with others, and it's the passing of energy, passing of, am I suppose, are you communicating for response? Are you communicating for shock? Are you communicating to get to sort of pass over information? I mean, I don't know. How many forms of communications are there? Do you any idea?
Oh my gosh! I mean, you're looking at multiple channels of communication and forms of communication, from everywhere from verbal to nonverbal to time. People don't know this, but chronemics, from the Greek word chronos, right? Time is a form of nonverbal communication. How you value time, it shows a lot about your personality and your communication traits as well. So chronemics, nonverbal, verbal, interpersonal, relational, team communication, conflict and communication, and even going to different personality, different communication styles with personalities. In like I said, my podcast series now, we're looking at personality traits and the communication associated with each one. And then you go into communication mediums, like, do I call them? Do I text them? Do I DM them? Do I email them? Do I go to their house? Do I, and then you have the context. Well, I need to have this conversation. I want to do it in face to face. Should we do it at a couch, at a table? Should we walk? Should I put the kids to bed first? Should I turn the TV off? So context matters. Communication, that's what's fascinating to me. That's why I love it. It is a hidden language, right? When you can understand, especially nonverbal communication, how people want to be communicated with, their preferred style and method and way you interact with them, you help them to feel comfortable. When you speak their communication language, you help them to be more at ease. When people are more at ease, they're going to be more vulnerable. They're going to tell you more things. That relationship is going to deepen. But the training I've had has been helpful to be a good communicator. I mean, just for example, on your podcast, I went and I tried to listen to other interviews you've had, because I wanted to follow, kind of have that similar style, and as other guests have, and not match them completely, but just with the level of depth and just conversation, just so I can understand a little bit more how this was going to work. And that's what we need to do in life too. I think more of us need to understand people better. I think we would be so much better off as human beings if we just simply understood each other better, but then taking it one step further, respect them for that and not vilify them. And that's what's going on in the United States right now is you are vilified because you have a different political belief than somebody else. You know, you're red, you're blue, you like Trump, you don't like Trump, you're this, you're that. And so just for your listeners who may be, not in the US, that's what's going on over here. But then I know that's going on in Europe and other places and too with the EU and with stuff, with Germany and all these different things. I mean, we're vilified for how we feel. Nobody is willing to understand and empathize and see things from our point of view. We almost refuse to do it. And that is a shame. And that's going to cause immense amounts of division. And, a divided house cannot stand, right? It won't, it can't. Division creates falter and splinters and cracks. And you get to a point where it becomes, you hit a point, and I fear this for the US, where it becomes, you can't repair it. And it's going to take a lot to get to that point. So that's a little bit about, that's why it's so important to learn about each other, learn about the communication styles, ask questions, meet in the middle, not necessarily compromise, but at least understand why somebody feels a certain way and leave it at there and take it as a victory. You don't always have to convince somebody to come to your side, whatever, but can we at least have some mutual understanding? Okay, I get that you feel that way. All right, I respect that. I appreciate that. Can we learn to appreciate each other's views more? Right? Can we learn to appreciate each other's, differences of opinions and personalities? We always celebrate and focus on celebrating diversity and celebrating culture and race and inclusion. And while all that's very important, let's also have a focus on our internal differences, because as much as we say we do, we really don't. And it's a shame, because I think we can, solve a lot more issues. I think we can be a little bit more harmonious if we did. And part of me always feels like, hmm, do those in power want us to be divisive? Not trying to go down that conspiracy theory route. What does the media feel? Does the media want a harmonious world, or do they want a little bit of, do they want some division and animosity because they can feed on that? I don't want, we don't have to go there if you don't want to, but it makes you think, right? It makes you think about what sells commercials and papers and, gets eyes to where it needs to be. And it's got to take some special people to really get into power and change that. Or how about, let's say, it's got to take a special society to push back and say, we don't want to be divided anymore, and we're not going to take it, right? And I think that's probably ultimately where we need to eventually get to.
It's hard though, isn't it? Because I suppose you take social media, for example. I mean, essentially, we are the product.
We are the product. Yeah, we are.
So can you trust any of the communication? Because when you're the product, you kind of, we're not paying to get on it. So somebody's paying. So people are paying to get in front of us. People are paying to get their opinion to that. So
I think that's where you have to be very hypersensitive to it. So I don't know if you or your listeners watched The Social Dilemma on Netflix. Fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. I think I don't think I finished it. I think I made it through about 3/4 and I was like, whoo, I was getting floored by it. But where they had a kind of a fake, like a robot type person or a hologram, whatever it was, set up, and it was supposed to be you, and they were getting you. They would they're scrolling too fast. We got to make them stop. Let's put this in here, or let's let's, all right, they clicked on, that's why you see cookies at, you go search for something on your phone and you'll see the cookie for it on your web browser connected to your phone, your social media, we're all connected. So, social media is designed, it was at its conception, inception, whatever you want to call it, to connect better, right? If you go back to the history of Facebook, you watch the movie, The Social Network, you read the books on it, it was designed to connect. Very simple, right? College, Harvard, university. Let's, we're all in different dorms. Well, I don't know anything about that dorm. Who's over there? Oh, okay. Here's a list of people. Okay, I see. There's a male, female. Okay. Oh, now you can have a profile. Okay, cool. Now I can interact with you. I can date you. I have all access to this information. Connect. It wasn't about products or political things and posts and anything like that. Now it drives the whole world, right? Now it drives everything. Facebook stocks, Google stocks, um, things like that are driving the market. And to the point though, where I think people are now addicted to it, right? I mean, I think we're, especially young people are you're addicted to self-expression. And I think social media has gotten us to a point where we are now addicted to self-expression. And I've tried to be counter to that with my posts. My posts are always very, I batch post. So if we go on vacation, there's some people and friends I know that they will post a picture every hour when they're on vacation. Here I am, here I am. That's great, but we'll do it when we come back a day or two later. We'll give you a highlight. Here's 20 great pictures. We had a great time, but and we'll leave it there because I didn't want our social media to be a working journal of our life. And I'll do positive posts about the schools I'm interacting with or my podcast episode. And I never get the political. I think I've made one or two political posts and I was on Facebook since the beginning, '04, in my entire, 16 years, however long that's been. So I've tried to be counter to what Facebook wants. They want you to spend a lot of time there. They want you to post a lot. They want you to engage a lot. Posts only do well if they get engagement, not necessarily likes. Comments and shares are do the it was where Facebook posts especially do the most. Twitter, right? It's not the amount of likes it gets, it's the amount of retweets and comments it gets as well. So they want you to be engaging and getting into it and having more eyes be on it. So if you're hyper aware to that, if you know that, you don't have to be sucked into it. I try not to post anything. If I see a political thread going about something socially, I won't put my 2 cents in. Rarely, because you have your name attached to everything too, right? Especially when schools were starting back and there were big debates online about in the U.S. Do we go in person learning? Do we wear masks? All this in school, it was hard, right? To kind of if I did jump in, I did jump in a little bit, but when I did, it was professional. It was not done in a finger pointing way. It was just it was very professional. And I think that a lot of people don't do that as much. They post unabated. They just sort of, like you were talking about earlier, let it fly. They don't realize that, well, I can see your name, where you live, and your job. So imagine if I were just letting it fly on Facebook or social media, they could see, oh, he's the speaker. He has a website, a podcast talking about being civil and positive. Your credibility is shot, right? So I have to watch that myself. And I always encourage people to, if you need to take Facebook or social media off your phone for a little bit, go on a fast, or at least build in another habit besides scrolling 12 times a day, which, when you're done, you're like, what did I just learn? Nothing, right? What did I just do? Oh, somebody got a new cat. Oh, great. Okay. That was somebody from 17 years ago who I haven't talked to since. Why are you in my life, right? Why do I need to know this? So if you can limit your brain to what it needs to know, there's some people that you just don't need to be interacting with or needing to really know what's going on in their life. It has no bearing on you. So why even crowd your brain with those thoughts? And why not focus on maybe creating a positive post or your own job or your own life? We live in this fantasy world of social media sometimes, and and TikTok and all this. And while it can be fun every once in a while, hey, I'm on Twitter right now, not now currently, but today and this week, because it's NFL free agency in the US. Hey, I want to know what's going to go on with these guys, right? I'll go on and search and scroll, and that's fun to me. But then I need to know when to turn it off and work or interact and not live there. I don't want to live on social media. I want it to be part of my life, but I don't want it to be my life. But like I said, that takes a lot of um, awareness to that fact.
I'm curious about your expression, that addiction to self-expression. Is it a true self-expression on social media, do you think? Is that a true method of communication?
Anything you put out there is communication. Every message you send from your body to when you click send to what you say, there's the old expression that's a double negative, but you cannot not communicate. You're always communicating. So when it comes to social media, it definitely is, because you sent that for a reason. You put that opinion out there for a reason. You shared that article for a reason. And maybe that reason was, well, I put out an article on anti-vaccine because you don't want people to get the vaccine, right? That's what you're trying to communicate. That's your message. Don't get the vaccine. Here's an article to support this. Well, then, I'll go to snoops.com and it finds out that article is BS and they've debunked it. And now you've lost some credibility and I saw that way too much during COVID. People sharing stuff with zero sources and affiliations and anything. And part of that's on the person, part of that's on the media outlet that maybe released articles. I know the Washington Post just retracted a huge thing from the US election this year that was found out to be a lie. And after the fact, though, so I think, people are, when I say addicted to self-expression, it could be political, it could be social, but people just, we like others to know what we like and what we're doing and who we are. And here's my family, and here's where I am, and here's what I'm doing, and here's food I'm eating, and here's my opinion on this. And I didn't like this movie, and I'm renovating my house, or here's my kid first walking, right? Everything in the middle, all that, that's self-expression. And when I say addicted to self-expression, I love seeing some of that stuff. I love seeing friends in there with their, if they're not nearby, and what their kids are doing or what they're doing or trips they're on. I think that's great. I think it just comes to a point where you're doing it too much, where it's like, whoo, you're showing your life off, whoa, a lot. And hey, it's great things, but that's a lot. Some people just enjoy being in that spotlight, I think, because maybe they get a lot of likes, maybe they get a lot of validation from posting a lot. So I think that's where the addiction to it comes, is that people start linking their own validation to their posting. They see, ooh, when I posted pictures of my kids, I got a lot of interaction. I want to post a lot more of that. You sort of become addicted to it. And then if something doesn't do as well, you're like, well, what's wrong with me? Right? I had this great idea or this great experience or whatever it is, and this great thought, and I didn't get as much love on social media as I was hoping and wanted. So that's where I think the addiction to self-expression can be problematic at times, when you start, when your psyche starts really being affected or dependent on it.
It is fascinating. Bit of a change of scene. What did Jim want to do when he was mini Jim, when he was growing up? What was the original plan?
Airline pilot. I wanted to be an airline pilot because my father was an airline pilot, and he's retired now, but he grew up in, he was in the Navy, and then he, got his pilot's license and flew for Xerox in the 70s and the 80s, and Continental United in the 90s, all the way through. I think he retired, I'm not even sure, 10 years ago or so, maybe longer than that. But I was always fascinated with air travel, because when your dad is a pilot, and my parents are divorced, but when we were younger, we got to fly for free everywhere and anywhere. And it was always just a thrill to get on the airplane and to hear my dad telling stories about the different cities he would go to and teaching us about the airplanes. And I would do his bid for him. So pilots have to bid for a schedule, right? They have to, and you, based on your seniority, you get the days you want and the trips you want. So meaning, you're going, you're staying on the East Coast instead of having to do these long trips, and these long layovers. So I got to help him do his bid, and he would bring us up to the cockpit if he was flying the plane, and I always have my model airplane flying around. And if he was going on a trip that week, so if I knew he was going to be to these 4 cities today, I would take my little model airplane and I would fly it all around the house. And every stop it would make would be the city that he was in that hour or that day. And then he would call at night and we would get to talk, and I would get to talk about the cities I went to because they're the same ones he was in. So I wanted to be an airline pilot when I was young, until I sort of brought that up to my dad when I got a little older. And we're probably talking now, you know, 9, 10, 11 years old. And he basically told me or convinced me not to be it because he was always like, I think he liked to fly. I think it gave him a lot of value and purpose in life, but that's a brutal schedule. I mean, he was gone a lot, and he didn't live in the city he had to fly out of. So it's called, you have to commute, just like people have to commute to work an hour, maybe. He would have to commute to, Newark, New Jersey from Florida, meaning you have to cut your at home time short by a half day because you have to fly up to your city, he would stay in this crash pad apartment, and then with other pilots who were coming in for the night, then get up in the morning, go to the airport and fly out. And so it was a lot. I mean, it would always go, go, go. So it basically convinced me not to do that. And then I went this route where I wanted to be a doctor for a while, and somebody would ask me, well, why do you want to be a doctor? And I didn't really know. I mean, maybe I was watching a lot of ER at the time. I don't know. I just, I thought it sounded cool, and even went into the medical program in high school. We had a medical program where you got to take classes in medicine and stuff, and health. But that was sort of around the same time I was doing these health clubs and competitions, and you would go to the conferences and see the keynote speaker, right? So I'm kind of tying it back. And I got to a point where I was like, all right, I'm not liking classes like chemistry, math, not my favorites. And I knew that would be your life as a doctor. And on the other side, I was like, wow, I really like the communication, public speaking, soft skill side of this. Let me explore that. So that's when I shifted gears to wanting to go from being a doctor to being more of a college professor speaker route. And that's where I am today. And obviously, and I have a laminated card that I keep with me. And I was a junior in high school, and it was one of those time capsule projects that you do it at the beginning of the year and you read it at the end of the year. And on it says, I want to be a traveling motivational speaker, and I also want to be a college professor teaching at a major university. And I was 16 when I wrote that, and that's what I'm doing now. Right, that's exactly what I'm doing now. And that was sort of the point where I was like, no, this is what I want to do. I don't want to be a pilot anymore. Definitely don't want to be a doctor, and this is the route I want to go. And I kept with that.
It's always fascinating, isn't it? That sort of journey and how we sort of find what we really want to do, and are you where you're supposed to be today, do you think?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I can say that with confidence. And I'm fortunate, I'm blessed, I'm honored, whatever you want to call it, to be able to say that, to have that self-actualization, right? Which so many people strive for and struggle for. What am I supposed to do with my life, right? Am I in the right job? Some people, I think, are just in jobs. They're not in careers. They're not in anything that they're passionate about. And I don't want to say I feel bad. I always say, well, are you happy, right? Are you happy? And nothing makes me happier from a professional standpoint, in life, than to go on stage, to be in front of groups, to do stuff virtually. That's really my self-actualization. And I put a lot on that because I really feel like that's what I'm supposed to be doing. So I'm confident to be able to say that it is.
And listen, it's a great place to be. So, talk to us a little bit about your podcast. I mean, what's your driver there, and what are you providing of service to the audience?
My podcast, Communicate to Motivate, was born, sort of when COVID was striking in the US. I think a lot of people were kind of, you know, branching out a little bit. And I'd already been doing some research on podcasts. I was even pre-COVID, I was looking at starting a podcast with somebody I was doing some speaking engagements with, and we sort of had, and I was gonna produce her podcast, right? I was looking into it. I'm like, maybe we should start a podcast. You can host it, I'll produce it, I'll guest host it. This is pre-COVID. And her and I sort of had a falling out, and weren't doing stuff together, but I had all this knowledge on podcasts, and I was like, I could do this, right? This is something that I want to do. I can do this, and not saying that it's easy. It's not easy by any stretch, but I could learn the technology and the writing aspect of it. So I just had to figure out what it was going to be about, and I was workshopping so many different titles and themes, and I thought it was going to be more. I was like, maybe I shouldn't pigeonhole myself on communication. Maybe I should do something else. I was going to do something on like, uh, you know, finding Arcadia, which is about like finding self-fulfillment, self-actualization, and getting to a point where you can finally be happy in life. And then I was workshopping a little bit, and it wasn't really, what people weren't feeling it, and I wasn't feeling it. And and I had done a talk right before COVID on motivation. I was asked to speak at a school on how do you increase student motivation? How do you get students motivated? How do you get people motivated? And then my university asked me to do a talk on the same thing, separate from my other talk, my professional talk at my school. The university I work for was like, our teachers, our instructors need to be motivated. So I was starting to put the two together. I'm like, communication, motivation. And I talked to John Gordon, the author I work for, and this is something I do separate from the work that I do with him, but he's always a great mentor with me. And he's like, call it Communicate to Motivate. And I sat on that for a little bit, maybe 2-3 weeks, and talk with family. And I'm like, that's it. They were like, that's you. I said, that you're the communication guy. You've always have been. I had that realization where I'm like, this is it. Okay. It's Communicate to Motivate, using communication skills to motivate you in all areas of life. And, I was talking to some people who work with brands, and they're like, you got to have your specific niche audience. And, I admit my podcast would probably be a lot easier if I had like communication for dads, right? Where dads are my audience, and I pour into that. And there's a lot of podcasts that do that. That are just for women, or just for entrepreneurs, or just for teachers. And I once again, the rebel in me, I pushed back, right? I said, you know what? I get it, and that probably would make audience segmentation a little bit easier and promotion a little bit easier, but I never really gone the easy route. And I said, I want to do communication, and I want to jump around a little bit. So I do series. I started out doing a long series, 13 episodes on communication in relationships. And then we did communication for families. And then I did a series on how have successful people use communication. And I brought on friends and colleagues who have done really well and how communication has helped them. And so I brought on some guests. And then we started the new year on quality time, and how quality time and communication go hand in hand. And now we're talking about personality traits and the communication needed in personalities. So I try to do variety, and I try to keep it relevant and practical, and try to hit a lot of different people. So I may have people who tune in and out, and maybe that's not the best strategy in the world. But you know why I'm doing this? I'm doing this not just for others, but I'm doing it for me as well. I know what kind of level you need to be at to monetize. Okay. I get those levels. I'm not at that level. I may not be at that level for a while. I may never get to that level. I don't know. But the podcast, I didn't start it originally to say, I am going to monetize this and I'm going to make a living from this. A lot of people do that. And I think that's incredible and that's great. That wasn't why I started it though. I wanted to start it to almost give myself an outlet and an avenue, right? To have that enhanced version of myself talk. And I have a lot of great anecdotes and stories, and I can frame a message really well from a communication standpoint. And I'm passionate about it. And I'm like, you know what? I think this can help a lot of people. That's the serve side of me. So I tried to focus on the root first, the root, meaning it can help people, great stories, takeaways, personal development. And if the fruit comes later on, wonderful. Okay, that's great. But I'm focused on the root and in having as many people listen to it because it's going to help them and focusing on that aspect first. I try to keep my episodes, if I'm not interviewing somebody, if I'm interviewing somebody, they're 30, 45 minutes. But if it's just me, it's usually 15, 20 minutes. And there's always a takeaway at the end. All right, here's what I want you to do now. Here's what I want you to try out this week. We just got done talking about communicating with your spouse, right? Here's something I want you to try. So it's built in that way. It's built where you can listen to it. And I have a lot of friends and people who tell me, oh, I listen to it on my way to work. I have a 20-minute commute. I listen to it on my lunch break. I listen to it while I'm at the gym. I'll go back and listen to my own episodes while I'm at the gym just to make sure I'm not sounding odd or anything, or hear yourself back. So that's sort of been my style, and I love it. I love doing it, and it was born in COVID, but it's going to outlive it. It's going to it's going to transcend it, and I'm gonna keep it going. I do one a week. They come out every Monday. And what's good about me and what I've been amazed about myself is my level of commitment to it. I don't want to say I have commitment issues, but sometimes I can get hot on doing something. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with Buffer, but Buffer lets you schedule tweets, right, a week in advance. And for a while there, I was really good. I'm like, all right, on Monday, I'm gonna schedule all these tweets out and build up my Twitter. And then 3 weeks later, and then I stopped doing it for a month, right? And I come back and do it. So I'm really inconsistent. This has been a one avenue of my life, at least, where I've not missed a Monday, right, since when I launched it end of April. So we're approaching a year. So for me, that is remarkable. So that shows you that I love doing it. It's not a giant burden to me. I have fun doing it. And you know what? When it becomes a burden, when I stop having fun, when I don't feel like I can add value anymore, then maybe we'll stop. We'll see. I don't know. I don't really have a plan in place. I don't. Uh, but I'm going to keep doing it as long as I can provide content and value, and we'll see where it goes. I'm still loving it a year later, 48, 49 episodes, and more to come for sure.
Always, I mean, it's interesting. I suppose even with communication, I mean, there's no end of subjects and opportunities there to talk, and
I probably haven't even scratched the surface, Pete. We've done relation from a series standpoint, and I'm a compartmentalizer, so I like to compartmental. That's just my style. Is I could easily jump from verbal to nonverbal to coordinate to conflict, and all this, but I tend to batch do it. So we did relationships, family, like I said, successful people, quality time, we're in personalities, and I have to find out my next one yet. So that's been helpful for me, and then I can kind of pull a thread. And you're right, there really are. It is almost endless. If you open up one of my communication textbooks, I mean, there's just so much, so much. So part of me is just narrowing it down, focusing it, and figuring out what is most relevant to people and their practical lives.
I mean, is there an overall take on how efficient communication in its formal method is? What is the efficiency level? I mean, in terms of what we're thinking through to what we say, through to what they've hear, and then to how they interpret it. Is there any formula, statistics, how good are we at talking to each other?
I think what people need to understand is that it is a process.
Mm.
And what I go through with my classes sometimes is we talk about that process, because sometimes we feel that it's just as easy as 1, 2, 3. It's like you and I talking, right? There's not a lot going on around me or you right now, right, from a context standpoint. But if you break it down, you break down a conversation, a one-on-one conversation, even deeper level, you have to understand that you're still dealing with internal noise, right? You know, we're stuff that I have to do after this. I threw my phone over there so I couldn't look at it as we were talking, right? Do I have any leads that have come in? Is anybody calling me, right? Over here, it's lunchtime in Florida. I'm getting a little hungry, right? So you're sort of battling this process when you're talking to people. You're dealing with a lot of this internal noise of that can distract you, that can throw you off. In external noise, of somebody who's home, somebody coming in, somebody walking by my window, the phone ringing, something going on here. That can derail a communication process as well. Now, the internal can definitely derail more than the external can, because I can shut a door, I can throw off a phone, I can take some water to help with the external communication. But the internal, you can't turn off your brain. You can try, but you can't. So I think that's sort of the process people have to understand, is that when you're engaging in a conversation with somebody, you have to make sure you pick the right spots and pick the right moments. And context matters, noise matters. So don't go into that conversation if you feel like that you are going to be distracted mentally. You know, I knew this was going to be a longer conversation with you, so I made sure, about 10 minutes before, just to kind of go into a space and just kind of, just quiet down a little bit and just get ready, right? So your mind's not, I didn't want to be working on emails and stuff and then boom, I have to go right into the conversation. So I think that's important for people, is to understand that it is a process. Context matters, internal noise matters, external noise matters. And then here's the last part too. Perception matters. And when I say something to you, you're going to attempt to understand what I'm telling you based on your own prior experiences. That's how we piece life together. That's how we piece the world together. I attempt to understand based on things that have happened to me. I try to make connections to you based on things that have happened to me. And while that's a good building block in understanding somebody, sometimes when you do that, you insert yourself too much into the understanding process. And we have to learn to temper that. And what we have to learn is to just listen to understand, not listen to respond, and listen to relate. So what bothers me a lot is if I'm talking to somebody and I'm pouring my heart and soul out to them, or we're just talking about something going on in my life, and their response is, "Oh yeah, I had that happen to me, and here's what happened to me, and here's what happened in my life," and then all of a sudden you're like, I was kind of talking here, right? Not that I needed the spotlight, but like I talked to you, I wanted to pick you to talk about this, and you just sort of brought it back to your life without giving me a lesson, right? Sometimes you can bring it back to your life because you tie it back to an important lesson or something. But when you just kind of take it and run with it, that's not communication. It's not going to make me want to, communicate with you again or on any deeper levels. So understanding that process is very, very important.
Where where do you sit in regards to listening versus hearing?
Well, listening is a mental process and hearing is a physical process. So, you can have the TV on the background and music on in the background, and you hear it as you're working, but it doesn't seep into your conscious or what is subconscious. So you're just hearing it. Same thing though in a conversation. You ever have a conversation? And like, I'm sure when you're doing these interviews, you give people the floor a lot to talk, right? I know you turn off your mic and you let us talk and go on. I'm sure there's some people who have gone on a lot, right? And you have to really train yourself to listen and stay locked into their words, and probably why you take notes. And I know when I do interviews, I take notes as well, because that just helps us to stay engaged and train the brain to stay engaged too, because the brain will drift off every once in a while if it doesn't, just because that's just naturally what happens. We every 5-8 seconds or so, we'll drift off and think about something else, and we'll come back, right? But it's up to that speaker to really try to make sure that that person comes back. And whether you do that with your gestures, your tone of voice, or storytelling, or arc and inflection, whatever you need to do, you have to understand that people, hey, they want to listen, they want to be part of it, but in general conversations and stuff, be sincere, but be brief. I always say is better, because if you're talking to somebody and you're dominating the conversation and you are just going on and on and on, and you're not really giving them a way to get in or ask questions or paraphrase, then they're just going to start hearing you and nothing's going to get in. They're just going to do the old head nod and vocalized, vocalized things like, oh, okay, those things, but nothing's really getting in. Something's gotten in when they're asking questions, when you can tell that there's that look in their eye where they're hearing you and they're listening to you and they're appreciating you, and they're trying to be engaged and involved in the conversation. If not, they could just be hearing you and it's just going in one ear out the other. So big difference, and it can make or break that relationship too.
So I'm curious because even when you were saying previously, listening to understand, and yet, I mean, I'm assuming it's the same the world over. It's like, people say it's like, yeah, I hear you. And it's kind of go, why do we flip the language at certain point? And listen, I mean, it's words are perfectly imperfect, they're they're as good as what we've got for so many things. But I'm curious about, that listening. I get it. I mean, I like that split between the mechanical and the sort of the interpretational, if you like, I suppose, between the two. I'm just wondering, is there a different level of hearing someone? It's like, okay, it's not the words you've said, but I hear what you're really trying to say. Maybe it's an interpretation. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think that expression is, and I've said that, I used to. I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. I don't I don't know that you really. I think it's an empty expression though. It's literally just that. I heard you make audible noises, right? I heard you say words. I don't, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't mean I accept it. It doesn't mean I understand it. It doesn't mean that it's going to mean something in my life. So it just means that I acknowledge you've said something. And so, there may be better ways of saying things. And I think sometimes these are just cliche expressions, right? We all have expressions, like I said, that have just been built in over time. There may be better when a lot of times when you say something like that, it's like you're talking about something, getting heated about something. You're like, well, I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. But this, right? So you're saying something else in the process. You're saying, I hear you, but I'm going to say something else completely different, or I'm going to give my take on it. So it'd be better to say, okay, I understand what you're saying. Now let me ask you a follow-up question, or let me paraphrase what you're saying. That's how you really, or you say something like, well, I want to understand what you're saying. What you said here, can you explain that part more? So I think there's just better ways of doing it to show that you are listening, because the I hear you can really is just a way to pivot, to a polite way to pivot, maybe to your turn in the conversation, your turn in the debate, and not a organic process that you might be on.
No, it's so true. I'm laughing because there's a good one of my mentors, if you like, is he says, when somebody invites you to come speak, is like, don't think for 1 second that they want you to talk about yourself. It's like, it's that thing of, people want you to, it's how you make them feel, if you know what I mean. So it's always interesting with that communication, and we've seen it, people do almost like, it's old fashioned now, but it was almost like a slideshow of my holiday. And it's like, why would I want to see a slideshow of your holiday? What you like? Because it was amazing. It's like, well, I know it was for you, but it's what is it? Communication is how you make somebody else feel, right? It's I can't remember this. I'm totally bastardizing that terminology, but
Well, Maya Angelou once said, people are not always, they're not often going to remember what you did or what you said, but they'll remember how you made them feel. So that's the big thing with communication, right? That's why I always said at the beginning that, communication is about helping people to understand the meaning of your message and help them to feel a certain way, because they're not going to remember everything that was said. Just like, in this interview or any interview I do, they're not going to remember every little thing that I say, every part of the conversation, but they're going to hopefully, close their phone and be like, I feel good, I feel uplifted, or I feel motivated, right? To now look at my own communication, my family's communication, my relationships communication. I at least feel motivated, and I can go back now and I can go back and get some tips if I listen here or there on how to do it. But they're gonna feel, a certain way, a call to action, so to speak. But the how they feel part is big. And I have to remember that with my audiences too, is that's why I start exciting, start big, end big, because I want them to feel good at the beginning, feel good at the end, and that will help what was said during to bubble up more as they're going through life.
Thomas, what are you great at and what are you terrible at?
What am I great at? I would say, to take communication and public speaking off the table, because I really feel like that's an obvious strength. I would say writing though too. I have my PhD, so I finished my dissertation probably faster than anyone's done at my university. I was done pretty quick, just because when I get motivated about something or passionate about something, part of it is I want to get it, especially if it's a work project, I want to get it done. But writing, to me, I sat down once when I was writing my thesis for a master's, and I would clear 20 pages in 5 hours, and I would clear it. And my dissertation, I would clear 10 pages in a sitting. I mean, we had to do, for our comprehensive exams for my PhD, we had to write 40 pages in a week, but we're talking about like heavy duty, really deep questions, and with sources and academic writing and really like stringent stuff. 40 pages, and I got it done, before the deadline, and it was fairly good, if I should say, because it was just, so writing and speaking and the English part have always been strengths of mine. I think it's helped me a lot in life with just being good in relationships, right? Being good with talking to people, empathizing with them, and then being able to, share something back. I've always been good. It's helped me be good in conversation. I'm a really good listener. I think that being on the communication side and writing side, I'm able to listen really well, and because I understand the importance that it means to that person. So when you like to serve people, you want to listen to them, you want to help them to feel better. Something that I'm not so good with, I would say, you're putting me on the spot here, in a good way though. I would say not as good with being flexible at times, and when my routine is off, when change comes, I know how to handle it. I know the mental things I need to do to get through that. But when something's off in my routine or my way of doing things, I think that's why I had so much problem with the COVID stuff, is because it was like, you can't go here, you can't do this, you can't do it's always regulation. I don't like a lot of regulation and stuff. I'm an American, right? Don't tell me what to do. So that's how we were, born and bred since 1776, right? So, but nonetheless, I would say that's definitely an area I work on, is just being more flexible and rolling with change as it comes, and trying to turn it into something positive, and not trying to get so anxious when something is off in my routine or my life or my way of doing things. So that's probably what I'd say.
Yeah, it's always interesting how we reflect on what we're good and not so good at,
Right.
When's a great time to get you in the room? When can you really serve?
When can I really serve? Talking in what context?
I suppose clients is probably where I'm at.
That like time of day or just in general?
General, when's the time to wheel you into the room? It's kind of going, yeah, we need a bit of gym here, and this is this is what's going to crack the nut. What's the best time to bring you in?
I would say, from that standpoint, I mean, mid. I'm trying to understand, like time of day, or just like to really get me into the fold.
Yes, well, yeah, just get you into the fold. When the experience is, or when you are seeking to, clear communications, whether it be professionally, personally, or what it actually is? It when people are blocked in terms of communication, or is it when they're trying to excel themselves, or is it when they're trying to build themselves? When what's who can you serve best, I suppose, is maybe a slightly better way of putting it.
I would say that so who's going to serve best in that standpoint. I think people need to sort of allow themselves to be served sometimes. I think some people have, they want to do it themselves. They want too much control and they don't want you to do something for them or help them in any way. So I think allowing ourselves to be served. And I think I do best when people understand that if I'm trying to have a conversation with you, if I'm reaching out to you, even a client, right? That that I'm really trying to see how you're doing, and I may not make a sale off this, but I'm really trying to see how you're doing. I have done so many pro bono free talks, the past 6 months, just schools who were teachers who were struggling, right? And I didn't get any repeat bookings off, from that, paid bookings or anything, but I really just wanted to have the enjoy the experience of doing it and help them along. And that's made me feel good. I know it's helped them to feel good as well.
No, it's great. I mean, that's what it's all about, as you say, is to help people on their journey.
It is. It always is.
Tell me this: what's a bit of a guilty pleasure for you, Jim?
I would say a guilty pleasure for me is watching a little wrestling sometimes. And let me tell you why. I've watched it since I was a kid. And even as a professional and as a husband and a father, I'll tune in every once in a while. And you know what? You know why? I love two things. I love good storytelling and I love characters. And wrestling has them both. Now, yeah, are they over the top? Are they out there? Absolutely. Totally. But you know what? It's a time where I could turn my brain off and just be entertained and have fun, right? Because life is so busy sometimes, especially as an adult now. Like I've appreciated watching some wrestling more now because as an adult, I got to run my household and my business and my kids and my everything, I don't know, everything and my community responsibilities. And sometimes I just want to shut my brain off and just have some fun, right? And I'll tell you what about wrestling too. What people don't understand, what people don't get. I've learned a lot from wrestling in my talks, my presentations with showmanship and using entrance music and interacting with the crowd and bringing people on stage. And I mean, these wrestlers do a great job in their promos, when they're on the microphone, getting a reaction from the crowd, right? The good guys want you to cheer them. The bad guys want you to boo them and hate them. And they will use their words and use tactics to do that. And I have learned so much about what it takes to interact with the crowd and the importance of doing that. And the men and women who get over in wrestling, quote, get over, and who the crowd, really loves to hate or loves, are the ones who have had that connection with the audience. So that's something I've really tried to work on, is that true connection to the audience, because then they'll want to listen to you. They'll want to, hear what you have to say, and maybe they'll want to bring you back in too. So I would say that's one thing. And my wife would probably agree with me too, that she hates it, but I have to watch it after hours, I'll say.
What would be your wrestling name then?
My wrestling name would probably be, we were just talking about this with the other day. Let me see, Jimmy. So my first name is Jim. I was going to do something Jimmy. I was just talking about with a friend of mine, but it was going to be like, so you know what they call me at church? I do the announcements on stage, and it's a moniker I've had to just embrace. They call me Jimmy Biceps. They really do, because I'm a weightlifter too, and I sort of come around to it. So maybe I would use Jimmy Biceps as a way to just make my entrance, right, get over with the crowd. They're going to hate it. And I could just go around flexing the whole time and, kissing your biceps. And then, they hate you enough and they start to love you. That's how it works in wrestling. So we'll use Jimmy Biceps to at least make my introduction, and we'll change it from there.
I love it. I love it. Jimmy Biceps.
Yeah.
I can see it. I can see it all happening. Get the tight pants on away, and as you
tight pants. Yeah.
Why let the truth get in the way of a good story, right?
There you go. Exactly.
It's all about. What does leisure and pleasure look like for you, Jim?
Anything outside. We, especially, being in Florida when the weather is great in October and in April when it's not too humid out, man, we are outside all the time. We're going on hikes, we are going on bike rides, we're going on walks, and even in the summer months when it's really hot or humid, at least we're at the beach, we're at the pool. We're exploring new places. So we're a very active family. We try to, my neighborhood's in a 1 mile loop. We always love going on a walk at night, and we've been on hikes the past couple weekends. And Florida hikes are like through the like you're going through the swamps and through the trees, and there's rattlesnakes around you and stuff. But my wife and I definitely love hiking. We're going to go to Hawaii this summer. Believe it or not, I have a speaking engagement in Hawaii this summer. How lucky. So I'm taking her out there, and we're just gonna hike the whole time. We're not gonna be laying. We really don't have any plans to lay on a beach. We'll go to the beach and check it out, but we have the beach here. I live 8 minutes from the beach, right? We're gonna hike. We want to get views and scenery. That's definitely our leisure thing. We like to be active. Is definitely a way we find leisure.
I'm feeling pretty miserable right now. It's like our beach is a long way away and it's freezing cold and probably raining. So,
Now, where are you exactly?
so I'm in Northern Ireland.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's kind of going. If you don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes because the various shades of cold, But yeah, no,
A little bit. I've heard a little bit about that region and how it can be. So I remember I was in London. Let's see, summer of 2006 on an internship in London, and it was July, and I guess it was hot for London in July. It was like wasn't for me. It was great, but it must have been Fahrenheit, high 70s Fahrenheit, whatever that is in Celsius. Sorry, we don't know the Celsius, but whatever it was, when we were on the trains, they kept making announcements about how hot it was and don't have heat exhaustion, drink water, seek shelter and shade. And I'm like, this is great. This is 78 degrees Fahrenheit. This is wonderful. But the English there were not too happy with that. So
I go from like white to pink and back to white again. That's
yeah.
good. It's like
We have a lot of Irish in our family. So my son's name is Brady, and my great grandmother was a Sweeney. So we have a lot of Irish in our family. So my beard, if I let my beard grow in, gets red, and my wife's a redhead, and my son's a redhead. So and my son is light as well. He's very paler. So we have to definitely slap the 70 SPF 70 sunscreen on him anytime we go out, because Florida, you go outside without sunscreen, within 10 minutes you're going to be burning. Like you will have a noticeable little bit of a hue there from it. So we have to watch out, especially with that Irish blood in us. So
yeah, I'd like to look at it for a while, but yeah, probably that'll be it. Is get me out of there quickly,
yep, I get it.
Yeah. Tell me this: fire in the belly for you. What's your fire in the belly in 1 or 2 words then?
In 1 or 2 words, I want to go back to what I said originally. It's passion in purpose, or purpose with passion, however you want to put it. To me, that is fire in the belly. And I know you've brought on guests who they're so passionate and they're full of purpose, and they have all sorts of different stories. And sometimes your story and your background becomes your mission because you've learned something from it and you've been really passionate from that. So to me, fire in the belly is discovering what you're passionate about and living your purpose.
I like it. So tell us, where can people follow you, hunt you down, find you, track you, stalk you, any of the above?
Any and all, absolutely. I'm on social media. We got done talking about it, but I am on there, right? Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at Jim Van Allan, VANALLAN. And my podcast, Communicate to Motivate. You can search for that everywhere. It's on Apple, Google, Spotify. I've listed it everywhere. You just search Communicate to Motivate and you'll find it. I also have it on my website, jimvanallan.com. And if you wanted more information on what I do from a professional side, from a speaking standpoint, you can go to jongordon.com, johngordon.com. and there'll be some links to our schools groups that I do training for as well. So that's where you can find me. I'm always happy to interact and talk with people.
Awesome. Jim, is there a final message you'd like to communicate with our guests?
I think the final message has to be live a life that is important to you, and don't be afraid to be the type of person that takes chances, because sometimes that's how you find real growth. And when you take chances like that, you take chances when you start podcasts like we've done, right? When you've sent emails out that you didn't know where they're going to go and they led to a job, as always, that's going to be where you find a lot of success, is in taking some strategic chances and trying to find happiness where you are, in your relationships, in your jobs, in your hobbies. Why do something? Why be somewhere if it just makes you unhappy? If you're in that cycle over and over again, I don't see the point. Your happiness matters more than anything. I know friends and people who have done well, and you hear people who have money, right? They have a lot of money. They're so unhappy. So if you can find something that creates both for you, great. In the end, try to be happy, because that's what's going to help you live a fulfilling, important life.
Beautiful. Love it. Love it. Jim, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing about your journey and everything else. So I've no doubt we will speak again. But for now, thank you.
Pleasure to be with you, Mighty Pete. This has been awesome. Thank you so much.
Till the next time.
Till the next time. Thank you.